You copied it.
You copied it. This is very good, this is well done.
You know, going to be.
We didn't take our time.
Your phone.
Save all of it, and we just put our own words in there. What do you think? It was very good, wasn't it? See, you think you could only write resolutions.
Pretend to know what you really
That's way easier. That's what that,
Are y'all ready?
for me, is.
You got it, Mr. John, go right ahead.
Call to order public safety, and we have one item on the agenda, and it's school speeding sign discussion, and we have.
They're both here,
Join us, please.
everybody's here, so you are double teaming me, so. Do you really want this? Yes.
I will need it.
I will allow it. He's loud enough, I
He's
think.
a great person.
There you go. So, there you go. So, thank you for being here tonight, both of you guys. I appreciate it very much. So, we've been talking about the school safety speed signs for many, many years, even my previous stint on the council. And of course, we ordered the other ones through the grant. And a few weeks ago, I happened to be driving down Albany Street when I saw the lieutenant, the sergeant, I guess it was, putting up the sign in front of Lincoln School there. And I stopped to talk to him, and said, boy, these are really looking good, and you know, how are they gonna work? But they really weren't what I thought we were going to get. Two things are, they have to stay on, they're on all the time continuous. We can't set it for like just to operate during the school zone time, like what is it, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. or no, whatever it is.
7 to 6.
And then from what I understand, the batteries have to be replaced every 5 days. They're rechargeable batteries, and they have to be replaced every 5 days. So both of those items I think are really a problem. I was really envisioning the ones with solar, working on solar hopefully, or whatever, we can mount them permanently to our streetlights maybe down the road through the smart city initiatives, but something where it flashes what the speed zone is in that area, because that's a lot of complaints. Our last Woodlawn Neighbor Association meeting, one of the gentlemen who was at the incubator there always said he doesn't know what the speed zone is because it's only up there once. But once where that speed zone is out there continuously, and then of course it flashes and telling you what your speed is. I don't know where they're putting up the rest of the day, but ironically, they put one up in front of Elmer Avenue School, and Elmer Avenue School, as we know, is not there. But it's gone now. It is, unless somebody stole it there.
No, but that was put up based on a complaint.
Okay.
But you're looking for something more permanent.
Yeah, yes.
These were meant for mobility.
All right, so
If I can explain the grant real quick. The grant was for $2,100,000. We bought a signboard out of that, and then 3 of these mobile.
on top of that.
Yeah, on top of that. So we knew that there's certain, it comes down to financing. We'd rather get 3 of them rather than get 1 of them, because the other ones are expensive, what you're talking about. They do have a program involved and so forth. They can get them. As we sit here, we've been putting them on a variety of schools throughout the city. It does work 24/7, and 5-day life is really kind of stand what we wanted anyway, because it's Monday through Friday when the school zones are active. But we also got it for other areas of the city. So when we bought them with the mindset that we're going to use them for deployment purposes and not for longevity at a certain area. So I guess when we're sitting here talking now, is what do we want to do as a city? Because we kind of talked about it, and we're getting some complaints about school zones, not that many. At least not that, and you might receive more than we do at the city council level. But we really don't, and we've had really the accidents that we could see. We're just kind of brainstorming today about it, and some of the other things that happened. We obviously want to make it as safe as possible environment.
Right.
Problem with urban schools is they're very close to the sidewalks and roadways, and they're a rural type of school, so we're conscious of that. So as we sit here defending our purchase, on the same token, we want to talk about how we can enhance the safety of it, and we look for other grants to get more in depth as a permanent solution rather than a temporary solution. There's one that had recurring costs on because they're contacting Wi-Fi or we can do the Wi-Fi, we work with smart cities to do the Wi-Fi end of it. But we can also work with driving cars and put them in so we can constantly monitor and constantly change them. So I guess we're sitting here, like I said, defending them to some extent, but they're kind of bought with the intention that we'll be shooting different spots different days, almost a surprise. Sometimes we don't even have them on, but they're actually on. And they don't look like they're not flashing, but we're actually just trying to get true readings of what they are. So in other words, we leave them on for a couple days, They won't indicate that you're going 45 miles an hour, but we'll see if the reading sometimes.
So you're still reading even though it's not flashing?
We're experimenting with some things like that, just to go, how we can deploy it better, and useful. So then we can deploy our manpower, obviously, with speed control, with police officers and so forth. So again, as we sit here, talking about it, I think that we've got a short-range plan and long-range plan, and obviously for grant funding, just, to go for more long-range type of plan, so.
There's 16 schools, I believe, here in the city,
Yeah.
and some of them will take multiple units to cover.
Because of where they're
schools.
located, right?
Yeah, and, 3 to 4 units per school.
You feel confident, the thing about me also was that we had to change the batteries every 5 days. I'm just thinking, the sergeant, as a sergeant lieutenant, going out there to change these things every 5 days. And we're not able to program them, just operate during those school hours, though, is that correct?
I'm not aware of it.
See, I think it's all the time, yeah, I think they're on constantly.
I think they're on, later on. There's ways to save
Yeah.
it for, a year or two to get different readings so they're not spread, but it's, that way.
We also purchased more batteries too, I mean, it's just swap them out. We want to keep the sign up there for an extended period of time.
All right.
We also have
to
to
buy more
the
batteries.
sergeant lieutenant there, who were to the unit. Not saying that they're misinformed, because they're informed, but again, this is a whole process. Prior to template in there, and again, financially, we try to get, we want to buy 3 of them, because we have 2 existing ones, they're different kind of units, they're actually more, high-tech, they're more, but again, we're working with the grant money that we had and backing into them, so we really need some time to work, we use them, we have more events in the city than ever with,
The runs and everything.
yeah, with the runs, with the things that go on downtown, at the casinos. So we kind of, that's kind of our priority, we're back into the number, as far as number of speed signs. So again, we can grow out from here in the sense that we'll obviously get the schools that are closer to the roads. But we can link it to.
Lincoln Bank over there, Oneida was another one, I got calls from Oneida, parents over there, with their concerns flying down that street as well. And Zoller was one on Rosa Road.
MLK, yeah,
Right.
so we have certain schools that we do.
Part of the smart cities with Wi-Fi connection, it makes it that much easier from a finance standpoint to buy certain equipment that.
Tie it all in.
Well, because then there's not monthly recurring costs. Right. Even though the grant money pays for it, sometimes they don't pay for the recurring costs, so we're just kind of conscious of that. So,
Can you wait till that comes through on that end and tie it all instead of rather buying
Just
toys?
get a little bit more money from the city
So
council.
give you whatever you want, I mean, it's all about school safety, and, knock on wood, we've been very lucky, I think the only incident I can remember was the Elmer Avenue School there, right? That was many, many years ago, when we had that incident, but we've been very lucky, and again, I've seen our officers patrolling there, issuing tickets as well, so we know what's happening, so
we do
that's,
the
I
traffic
appreciate
enforcement
that.
there, those things, they all,
right.
there's not one solution here, obviously, but you mix them all together, and it obviously makes a lot more sound for protection of the environment in the schools, so. And we'll continue to look, we'll continue to work with, the smart city program and grant funding, and see what we can find, and then, obviously, the council has some money, they want to give us, as the mayor said.
Well, we will, because I said,
Yeah.
all right, very good, all right, thank you, very good, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You got choice, yes,
You're done good.
Any other item before public safety? Can we have a motion? Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll call to order the Committee on Administrative Efficiency. And the first item we're going to go through, and I'm just going to flip these around real quick here, is just a resolution of support for the St. Clair's hospital retirees. Did we get a copy of that out to everybody here? I know it was emailed to us earlier today. I just thought it was important, we've talked about this for a while, and I know some of my colleagues on the council wanted to do this as well. Again, this is a draft. If anybody feels that you want any changes on this, again, we're designated the clerk. Mr. Thorne, to send certified copies of the resolution, to our elected officials here within the state, including the governor and, of course, the bishop. I just think it's very important to support, our employees, past and present, who were severely affected by this the pension loss here at St. Clair's. Any discussion on that? I know we sent it out late. Took bits and pieces from other resolutions around, kind of put it all together.
All right.
All right, Mr. Pauling, second by Ms. Karen Kuskowitz. All in favor, say aye. All right, thank you. And the second piece here is regarding the workplace violence report and review. And, you know, a few weeks ago, we had one of our colleagues stand up and made some statements and had some accusations that were made at the public session there regarding some of our folks, our city workers. And I was very upset about the whole thing. Have not received any copies of the complaints other than what Ms. Perazzo has in her possession. I don't believe copies were issued to Mr. Valtigo or to the mayor himself. So after I talked about it with a few of the colleagues, I said, you know, let's put a report together. I really want to take a look at the report, work with Mr. Valtigo, and see what we've got here, and just make this document open to the public. This could have been an executive session discussion, but I feel that for the sake of transparency and for the comments and accusations that were made at the meeting, and of course in several newspaper articles, I just feel it's very, very important that we open this up for discussion and have the city come forward with their report for not only 2017, but current up to 2018. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Valtigo for discussion or review, or to the mayor, and come forward with all this information for everybody to share.
Well, as Council President Kocher said, you know, lately there's been a lot of rhetoric regarding the work conditions for city employees and the way the city handles the complaints of violations of the workplace violence prevention policy. And despite what's been publicly stated by others, you know, we don't litigate our issues in the press, so we've waited until this meeting to set the record straight. So for the quick beginning, you know, I want to talk a little bit about our workplace violence prevention policy. It is a state requirement that was unanimously approved by the City Council back in 2016. It's a very thorough policy, and you know, just to sum it up in a sentence, it bans any acts or threats which are intended to intimidate, threaten, coerce, cause fear or harm, you know, whether directly or indirectly to anybody. So when we get a complaint based on that policy, or when somebody comes to HR and articulates something which sounds to us like it would be a violation of that policy, you know, we tell people you have to fill out the paperwork and make an official complaint. You can't just come in and verbalize something and leave. Once we know that there's any type of allegation, you know, we put it in writing so it can be investigated. And it's investigated thoroughly, fairly, and impartially. HR and the law department, you know, we work together to make sure that we investigate, you know, we talk to the person who's making the allegation, that we talk to every witness that they list on the paperwork that somebody witnessed the incident, and then wherever else the investigation takes us. Sometimes it's just those people, sometimes we find out there are other witnesses, sometimes we find out somebody said something to someone else when we talk with them, but wherever the road takes us, we go all the way down and we get to the end. You know, at the end, you review the facts, we document the conclusions, and then there's a meeting with all the different parties to inform them, you know, of what took place. Another part of this policy that I think is helpful for today is the requirement that at the end of every year, there's a summary put together which goes to the safety committee. And it doesn't have any personally identifiable information in it, but it's just a summary of what type of complaint came in, the basic facts, you know, the investigation took place, and what the conclusion was. So that's something that even with the confidentiality provisions of the contract, the policy, I'm able to share those with you today. So we're going to give out copies of kind of a report that's going to include that and some other stuff.
We have copies for the press as well. They'd like them. Anybody else?
We have copies for everybody. Alex will,
And again, this is so important because, again, we could have done this in executive session, but again, in light of the consequences and the severity of the accusations, we really feel this is important that we do this in public. They're all against it anyway, so you don't worry about it.
That's a nice book in there.
We redacted it.
That wasn't one for me.
They're my home games.
Does anybody else need a copy of this? We have more copies. Anybody else want one? No, we're all good?
Well, you have one.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Okay, Carl, go ahead. Thank you.
All right, so going through this at the top, it's a quick summary page of the different complaints that have been put in. You see in 2017, we received 10 complaints. This is in total. And in 2018, as of, I think, last Thursday, it was 12 complaints. The first three lines here, it's complaints where there was a violation of the policy found after our internal investigation or an external investigation, and that's 14 of the 22 over those 2 years, we did find a violation of the policy. So 63%, about 2/3. The amount of complaints where a violation of the policy was not found, it's 5 out of the 22, so 22%. And there were a couple of complaints where, for some specific reasons, we were not able to come to a determination, and that is 3. And those have been articulated in there. And I put some stats in here about the ASME Union just because they're by far the most vocal about the amount of complaints that they put in. And I read in the newspaper that they said they put in 20 or 22 complaints just in the last year, and they've all come back as unfounded. So to clear that up, the amount of complaints that were put in where a member of the ASME Union was a complainant, it's 6 over the last 2 years. 3 of those, there was a violation of the policy found, and only because it's been raised by them a number of times about their non-union supervisors and problems with them. Only one time in the past 2 years did an ASME member put in a complaint about a non-union supervisor. So if you flip to the next page, you see it starts in 2017, and it's a summary of each complaint that's come in, one on a page. And I'll go through the first one, and I'm not going to go through all of them and waste your time. But, we have incident 1, general description, it's an employee against a constituent. And that's something about this policy where it really says all employees have a right to a safe working environment. So even if it's not another employee who comes in and does something, if a member of the public comes into your office and behaves in a way that violates the policy and makes it so you don't have a safe working environment, which you're guaranteed, you can still put in a complaint and we investigate it and we take whatever steps are appropriate based on the individual circumstances. So you see here the location of the City Hall. They generally complained of verbal abuse, intimidating actions, and false accusations. We interviewed 2 people. The summary is it was an incident between an employee and a member of the public. The member of the public accosted the employee about a police incident. And the response by the city was that we reviewed the complaint. We spoke with the complainant. We talked to the complaint supervisor, and we met with the CSE union to discuss some work assessments. So a violation of the policy was found. It should be pretty clearly marked in all these whether there was a violation found. So you can go through all these at another time, or if you do it now, you can ask me questions at the end, but you'll see you shouldn't be able to, you're not going to have a huge summary or details, but enough to kind of get the gist of what was going on and whether or not we determined that the violation was found. And after you flip through those, we'll get to 2018. So you have the same thing. So just to recap that, over the past 2 years, we have 22 complaints in total from all employees, of which almost 2/3 of them were substantiated, meaning we found that a violation of the policy did occur. So there are people out there who are saying that, we don't find any of these complaints have happened, and that violation of policy just don't occur. And I don't know, based on the information I have and the work I've directly done on these, where that information could be coming from, but I'm telling you, as honestly as I've ever been with this, which I always have, that is definitely not the case. There are a couple of situations where we did find there was no violation of the policy. I think you'll see in here there's one part where you'll see something where the violation of the policy didn't take place, but the employee was still spoken to about behavior that's looked at as unprofessional. So we handle all these in a very common sense, fair, and impartial manner. But moving on with that, there are people who are alleging that they put in these complaints and they are not satisfied with the results that they received. And believe it or not, that is something that the policy itself prepared for and kind of gives some direction on what to do. So when you flip to the next page after the 2018 complaints, you'll find a page that has a number 10 at the bottom. This is the 10th page of our workplace violence and prevention policy. And First is talking about when the employee first puts in the complaint. And it mentions right here in the middle of the page that even when the complaint is first put in with HR, that if an employee, they still might want to put in a complaint with the State Department of Labor. And he gives me information on how to do that, gives an address, gives a phone number to fax it to, and a website to go to. So we're telling people, you have to file a complaint with us, the policy requires it, but at the same time, if you want to, go right to the Department of Labor too. Do them both at the same time. We've got nothing to hide. And then if you flip to the next one,
It's in an independent third party. Connotations of some level of threatening or intimidation, and that just is not part of the environment. People are being selective in their word choice and creating scenarios that just are not reflective of what is actually happening in the workplace.
so if you flip to the next page, you have 11 on there. There's 11th page of the workplace violence prevention policy. There's subsection 3 little eyes there. It says, if after providing the city a reasonable opportunity to resolve the situation set forth in the incident report, that the employee still believes there's a violation of the city's program, that it still exists, or that there's an imminent danger of workplace violence, they may contact the Commissioner of Labor again and request an investigation. So the policy really addresses these issues where there's a determination made that people aren't happy with. And it says right in there, passed by the city council, administered by us, if you don't like what's in here, please go to the state, put in a complaint, asking for an investigation, get an impartial third party to come in. As of now, nobody has taken us up on that step to do that yet.
Well, 1037 has taken one issue to arbitration in the last 2 years.
That's what I was going to talk about next. So that's in the policy, but there are even more safeguards in place than just what's in this policy for our union members to take advantage of. And that's the grievance process, which runs through their contracts. So if you flip to the next page after this, this is the section of the ASME contract that outlines the grievance process. And the general summary is, anytime a member of the union believes that their rights under New York State labor law or the contract that their union has with the city are violated, they have a right to file a grievance and have that grievance adjudicated by a state-appointed, impartial, third-party arbitrator. And that process is laid out right here. A grievance is defined. It says it can really be any violation of treatment that you're not happy with. If you go into the next page, page 5 here, it shows the procedural requirements, and it's basically you file it with the city, we take a look at it, if we agree with you, we just do what you want us to do, and sometimes that happens, but if we don't agree with you, then you have the right to push it. And on the final page, you can see it clearly states that it's the union who has the decision that they want to bring it to the Public Employee Relations Board, where the selection of an impartial arbitrator will be determined. So it's not the city, we can't stop anyone from doing that. So if there's any point in time where a union is not happy with something that the city is doing, they have the sole and exclusive right to go to the Public Employee Relations Board and get an independent third-party arbitrator assigned. And that decision, you see it right here in the middle of page 6, the decision is final and binding. So once it happens, we're stuck with it. And I can tell you that in the last 2 years, with the ASME union, we have had only one grievance that they actually brought to an arbitrator to get adjudicated. And if you flip to the next page, I put a copy of it in there just so you know what it looks like and you can see what it was about.
And again, the quick fact pattern there was we had been paying on-call workers for 18 hours, even though the contract said they were supposed to be paid for 12 hours. Again, it's one of the things that Mr. LaFawn brought forth in tightening up the controls that I expect to be implemented in the field. And they challenged that, saying that they wanted to be paid a higher rate independent of what was in the contract. So it went to arbitration and the city's position was affirmed.
All right, so for me personally, looking at all this, the facts don't make sense because I don't know how so many people can be out there saying that all these things are going on, but we're not having the arbitrations on grievances and they're not putting in the complaints on workplace violence against their supervisors. So that made me look into the union time usage for different unions. And you see on the last page, the chart here that shows union hours. And all of our union contracts allow the official officers of that union to investigate workplace issues and file grievances and do so on the city's time. Because we think it's so important that these issues get addressed, that we actually pay the employees to do it instead of doing their normal work. And you can see here, the ASME union, when I put the chart comparing them to CSEA, because they're the two largest non-public safety unions, over the 2 years, they've used almost 4,000 hours of man hours that they've been paid for by the city, their officers, to investigate workplace issues. And for those 4,000 hours, we have 1 grievance arbitration and 6 workplace violence incident complaints, only 1 of which was against a supervisor. So I just don't understand how to reconcile these things where they're taking all this time, they're looking into all these issues, but none of the issues are translating into the things they can do to actually solve the alleged underlying problems. What I do know is that this whole process has been very unfair to the managers the city has, because we've got people who do a good job, like Paul LaFon and Floyd Slater and Miguel Falls, and they're having their names dragged through the mud in the newspaper right now, because the city is obeying the confidentiality requirement in the workplace violence policy. And we're not commenting on these specific allegations where, other people are, and they're making things up that, I would like to respond to, because I can tell you that they're not true. So what we're asking the council to do now is to amend the workplace violence prevention policy to allow the city administration to respond to public accusations related to the complaints. Because, I don't want to see, or I think our managers deserve the same rights as the other employees get, where if they screw up, they should be held responsible, but if they're not, they should not be accused of things and not have a way to defend themselves. So that's what I'd ask you to do today in terms of legislation, to pass a resolution amending the policy as I just described. If you're in favor of that, I will send you a copy of my proposed language before the end of the week.
Mr. Mayor, any additional comments?
Well, Lisa, do you have any documentation? Apparently, sorry I wasn't there Monday, I thought everybody knew I was out of town. And you haven't forwarded anything to me
Yes,
to my
I'd be
knowledge.
happy to share that with you. And also, I did not accuse anyone of anything. I brought forward concerns because I've been having meeting after meeting after meeting over the course of the last 2 years, quite honestly. The phone call starts like this. I've been with the city 12 years, 17 years, 6 years, 8 years, and I've never made a call like this before, but I don't know what to do anymore because I'm beside myself with my workplace environment. And so we sit down and talk, and I say to them, the council doesn't have any oversight on this. And most recently, that
So
meeting
you-
ended up with 6
right.
people.
That period of time, you've never relayed any of that to me.
We don't have oversight over it. I don't know what
I
to tell
asked
them,
if
you
you
know what I mean?
relayed it to me, I do have oversight.
Right,
over
and nobody
it.
will come forward. Nobody wants to come forward because they have already experienced retaliation or feel like they
Well,
might
you have,
experience
and you have to
retaliation.
tell me
So,
what that is.
Okay, let me finish what I'm saying. So most recently, there were 6 people that were willing to come forward, and they wanted to come to the council meeting, and then they backed out because they just were too nervous about it. But they sent forward their statements, and I'd be happy to scan them and send them to you. And to me, the law of averages don't make sense right back, right? But I did not accuse anyone of anything. I brought forward concerns, and what I asked was for 3 things. I asked for you as the highest manager in the city to look into it, which looks like you have through Carl, and I hope we continue to. I asked for a neutral third party to come in and do investigation, which now I see there's a provision for,
You
so I'll
voted
let
on
them
that.
know that.
You voted on that
Yep,
policy.
thank you.
So you should have
And I
known
just
that.
have
You
one
brought it
more,
forward.
I just have one more thing. And the third thing was that we call as many witnesses as the complainant has asked. And beyond that, I don't care. Just because I think those are best practices. So that's what I said, very professionally. I did not accuse anyone. I did represent some employees that came to me with some serious concerns. Because that's what they asked me to do, and I was willing to do that for them. And I continue to be willing to do that for them, and I hope that we get all of this resolved and that we get on a good track, because there's a faction of our city employees, and I'm not the only one that's alluded to this on the council, that clearly are not happy in their position. And I would like to try to fix that if we can. Maybe we can't, maybe it's unresolvable, but to me, the law of averages, say if you have this many people coming forward, somewhere there must be something that's off a little bit. And so I'm not asking to look into it, I'm asking you to look into it as the manager of the city, and I don't think that's unreasonable. And as
Well, you
far
have to
as
have the
these men,
information, so you.
yep, I'd be happy to share that
So
with
if
you.
you wanna give that to me tonight, we'll follow up on it.
Sure, I'd be happy to share that
So,
with you.
do you have it, or?
I don't, I can scan it and send it to you.
I think, speaking for the con, I'd like the rest of the councils to have, be privy to the same information
Sure,
that was given to you. And again, the accusations, you did call out the supervisors, and name in particular, but all of the supervisors'
I did
names
not.
are, they're in the article. I didn't print the article, I
yeah,
didn't write the
they're
article.
in
And
the
I-
signed
yeah.
statements that the employees made,
That
not
we have
that I
never
made.
seen. We have not seen any of that.
Okay,
It was
I'd be
never
happy
shared
to
with
share that with
Corporation
you.
Council, but yet we went public with all this information against the mayor, against the council. And again, the council, we have rights. We are able to deal with this situation as we're doing right now. And again, we're gonna change the confidentiality clause. I think that's important. If we're gonna call out everybody, then let's waive that confidentiality clause as well, and let's put all the cards on the table. I am for the safety and the protection and the rights of all our workers. Not speaking for myself, but I think there's a few of us that are blue collar workers here that represent it. I've been a plumber for many, many years, and I understand. And I was actually, when I went out of high school, I worked for the garbage truck for almost 6 months in the city of Buffalo. It's important. I know what these men and women do, and again, we want to protect them. But again, for us to come publicly without going to the mayor or the corporation council or any of our other colleagues on the council to share any ideas, I just thought was unjust. And quite honestly, I called it Campaign 2019, and that's exactly the way I'm looking at it. This should have been done with all of our cooperation, rather than you coming public, making the accusations, and I will stand by the word, accusations, as has been proven falsely reported right now by Mr. Feltico. Any other discussion on this? Ms. Porter?
I have a question, Mr. Falatico. You said that all the other complaints, there was only one against the supervisor, so I just want to be clear in this report, because all of them state employees versus against employees, so does this mean in someone's coworker, and none of these are against the supervisor?
No, employee versus employee just means that we're both employees of the city of Schenectady,
Mhm.
as opposed to a member of the public or an employee of another governmental agency.
Okay, and I raised that question because when the part that you gave to us in terms of the arbitration, it uses the term immediate supervisor. So I was just wondering if
What page are you looking at?
page 5. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So that's why I was wondering, so it wasn't easy for me to follow when this was against the supervisor, because the report only says employee, so that was mine.
The difference is, with page 5 here, this is a copy of the union contract.
I get
But
Mhm.
the other part, that's the summary of all the workplace violence complaints.
Right, right.
So they're two separate things. This one is not gonna deal with supervisors, because supervisors aren't members of the union.
it, right. And no, I understand that,
Yeah.
but what my point is that it's easier to, here, just looking at it, it looks like maybe that's just my coworker that I'm talking about as opposed to my supervisor. So it would be easier to see how many of these complaints, because I have heard things, I mean, I said that, it was easier to see whether this was against the supervisor as opposed to this one, it's very clear, the very first one, that's against a constituent, absolutely clear.
It's written that way. We just took these are from the reviews that were done, and the one that had been worked on for 2018. So they weren't created kind of for this purpose, it just so happened that they worked for this, so that's why it's written that way. It's not meant to kind of explain the supervisor versus employee issue. But I hear you on that.
Because that's what, I mean, but I wouldn't bring, people don't give me something specific, I'm not gonna just like, I heard they said, without anything to write, et cetera, but, I have said things, and it's been versus supervisor, so that's why I was asking that
What I can
question.
tell you is that altogether, you have the one from the ASME union against the supervisor. And then, so it looks like altogether 4 out of these 22 are against non-union supervisors.
Are the supervisors that are in the union?
There are, yes. Sometimes you'll have a CSEA employee who supervises some other employees. And there was one where a CSEA supervisor put in one against somebody that worked for them, and one where an actual person put in one against a CSEA supervisor.
Ms. Wozlowski?
So, you have 14 complaints that were founded here. Can you tell me what happened? Like, what happened, what was the resolution on these?
I can't give you the details on it, because I think that would be a violation of the policy, but I can tell you that in general, it depends on the specific facts and circumstances. You know, sometimes if something's found to be a violation, it might be appropriate, you sit down with the person, you talk to them, you counsel them on how to not do something again, if it's not really serious. Sometimes there's, you know, substantial disciplinary measures that are involved with it at the end of the investigation.
So, Mr. Coker, going forward, if we adopt this policy, we would be able to see these reports similar to this at the end of each year or just in general? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we compile every year. We have to give it to the safety committee, so we'll always be able to give you summaries like this. If you wanted to see something more specific about a specific situation, that's probably kind of thing we'd have to talk about, depending on what it is.
Ms. Bowman?
There's been calls for just having straight out third-party investigations from the outset. How much would that cost the city?
I crunched a couple numbers just based on, you know, the amount of complaints that we have, and it would probably be somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 a year.
But you did say correctly in our policy that if there's a person that's not happy, they can have a third-party investigator do this, correct?
Yeah, that's what it would cost us if we hired an outside law firm to investigate. If somebody, the important thing is just getting a neutral third party to investigate in instance. You know, like I outlined, there's a whole lot of different ways you can go about doing that. So that wouldn't cost the city any money. It costs the city and the union about $1,000 each to have a grievance hearing. So it's not a huge amount of money in the grand scheme of things.
Is it safe to assume our union leaders certainly recognize and understand these rules and regulations that are in the policy, correct, Carl? I mean,
I personally think they do, because I think, well, one thing we do, every employee gets a copy of it when they start, and if they were already an employee when we
it's in your packet, it's
passed
in the
it.
employee's packet.
Yeah, we made sure every employee got a copy, they had to familiarize themselves with it and ask any questions they had about it. And just based, you know, you do have employees who come in, they put in, you know, the complaints, people know it's out there. It's just mostly, it's people filing complaints against their coworkers.
And with our coverage with NYMER,
What is NYMER, Gary? What is
the
that?
New York Municipal Reinsurance, so it's our insurance carrier. They have a large library of webinars that deal with a number of issues so that they're available, and we're working with managers, other employees to take advantage of those training sessions so that they can be done really with a high degree of flexibility and little additional cost for the city. So it's driver safety, it looks to minimize risk, some of the management techniques that are out there, and we're looking to do this all the time.
You look puzzled, so I knew you had a
Yeah,
question.
so you said the management techniques, what do you mean exactly by that?
Well, if you sit down and go through the list of course offerings, so it talks about, again, from an insurance perspective, how do you appropriately manage things, and again, NYMER had come in and done the workplace violence training seminar, so that is also online. So if you went to the course where the instructor was here, there is a webinar that deals with that, deals with other aspects, and I don't have the full listing, but you can look at that, and we can encourage whether it's members of the city council or other employees to take advantage of what's available through that.
So that kind of, because I asked about this before, and I'm not sure where we are with it. When, and, you know, I think we all want to support our supervisors. So when someone raises up to the office of supervisor from having been part of the, you know, rank and file, and now they're the supervisor, is there training that takes place? Because now before it was just you doing your job, and now it's you managing other people doing their jobs. So is there training that takes place so that person is comfortable and that we're supporting them in that way, so they can do the best job possible? Is that part of that?
Again, you would have to tell me specifically what position. Some are not, there's not additional training. Others, there are independent civil service requirements that they would have had to meet to take a test to be in the supervisory position or other positions within the city. There is training provided on an ongoing basis, depending on what that position is.
So I wouldn't, and to me, I'm really talking about generally speaking, that you're now you're going to be a manager, and in order you have to deal with people every single day. You're going to have to say no when people want to go here, yes. Basic things and, interaction with people, dealing with difficult people, that those kind of basic trainings, is that kind of management something that we do as someone moves into that? And I'm not sure if you know that right now, but that's what I was talking about, because that puts the person who's being moved into management in a better position as well to be able to do their job. So I was wondering if that kind of training took place through HR or wherever in the city.
It depends on the position and what the requirements are for the job that they're getting moved into.
So to close the discussion, we're looking to move to waive the confidentiality clause, correct? And you can send us a draft of that in the next couple days so we can vote on this on Monday?
Yes.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
I'll second it.
Well, everybody else okay with that? I just want to general feedback, all right? We're okay with that? Okay, so moved by Mr. Bowman, second by Karen Escobar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carl, do you have a closing? Yeah, sorry. You're all good?
I mean, I know I think it goes insane.
No, you're not.
I mean, really quickly, no, I'm not accusing anybody of saying anything or making accusations but in reading what's been in the paper, there are people out there who are saying that all these complaints come back as unfounded. And they're clearly, you've raised the fact that we need third-party investigations because it doesn't make sense, the law average doesn't support that many complaints and them all being unfounded. So we've given you the information, we put our cards on the table in a very public manner to show, almost 2/3 of these complaints that come in are found to be substantiated. And I think that really speaks to the fair and impartial investigations that we do, where we don't care who you are or what position you have, we're gonna hold you accountable if you violated it, and we're gonna exonerate you if you didn't. So, just for whatever it's worth, if there's information out there to the contrary, I'd love to see it, but I strongly stand by everything we've done here.
Very good, again, thank you very much for all your work on this, and I appreciate the openness, and again, I just think it's important that, we go to Corporation Council and to the mayor and working together, and again, to protect our workers through all the process, and we look forward to getting the information from Ms. Perazo on the complaints from the unions as well. So, anything else to come before our committee here this evening? Motion adjourned, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Call order to Finance Committee. The first item is the reimbursement of expenses for the Rose Garden Restoration Committee with Mr. Ferrari.
Council President, Council.
Sir.
Thank you.
Welcome back, too.
Thank you.
Every year, the Rose Garden collects fees for the events that they put on in the Rose Garden. And what the city's been doing is we've been reimbursing the Rose Garden up to the amount of fees that we have collected. In 2018, they received, the city has received $2,026 in Rose Garden fees. And we're putting that against expenses that the Rose Garden Committee used for the water feature in the garden, which totaled $2,172. So we're requesting to bring the fees that we collected, the $2,026 paid to the Rose Garden Committee, to once again to keep the Rose Garden as beautiful as it has been in the past few years.
Are there any questions? Second by Mrs. Lewis-Givazona, second by Mr. McBaron. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Very good, thank you, sir.
Next item on the agenda is a budget reallocation. That would be Mr. Palatika to bring this forward.
Yeah, sorry for getting this information to you a little late, but you can see on the back side of the legislative request, there's budget reallocation for 4 budget lines. Basically, we have a vacant position right now with Deputy Corporation Counsel. We've got a lot of turnover in the attorneys and the law department due to the economy being good and the state paying us a bit more than we do here. So what I'm looking to do, just in order to staff the office, with some people to help us get through right now, is abolish the line for Deputy Corporation Counsel and to create an information processing specialist 3 for the law department. And what that person would do is help out with general office duties, but, you know, a lot of what Rachel used to do, she was deputy court counsel, is the property sales. And a lot of that work is something that an administrative person can help with, where you have someone taking the offers, and I'll make sure the listings are all done correctly, check the websites to make sure the pictures are on the listings, get everything organized for the city council meetings, and the management committee meetings. And right now, that's all being done by an attorney in Colden, who's doing a great job, but he could use some help. And if we can bring in somebody, you know, I think we can find somebody for an IDS3 position quickly in January, and then we can take the leftover money, put a little bit towards the street department manager position, and the rest into the assistant corporation counsel line in order to help us attract more qualified people. We've hired a lot of people who are out of school or freshly as close out of school. They've done a good job here, but I think what would be best for the office now is if we brought on somebody who had a bit more experience, and this will allow us to have a higher starting salary in order to do that.
Any questions, Mr. Mover?
Yeah, just a question regarding this here. We had talked about this excessive raises to managers during the first period. I know some of my colleagues here had reservation with the voting for the budget in terms of that, and it was one of the recommendations and the way forward to look at the raises and to reduce these raises and to look at down the road that when we can afford it, we can continue to give raises. I looked at it here as budget neutral, but at the same time, it's almost $9,000 of raises that we took out when we voted for the budget, and now we're adding it back. Regardless of the $0 impact to the budget, and if you're having savings within your department, I think you should just remain in your department and go back to the general fund, rather than just vote for a budget that we just voted just over a month, and here we are, about $9,000, adding raises again.
Yeah, it does kind of look like that.
I've gotta have somebody to manage snowstorms in the street department. I need that salary higher.
So, I understand that, could you explain it the way that,
I guess.
I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
sorry. That you, what about this position and how we got to this number?
So there's an internal candidate who we think would be a very good fit for this position, and it's an important position, and we need somebody who can hit the ground running as opposed to someone that, you know, we're gonna take 2 months to find and have to train them. So the person right now in the 2019 budget is in a certain job title, and that was the council's final budget, that job that they're in now was completely abolished. So come January 1st, they had no job. And the idea was that they would accept the street department manager position. So we'd have savings by getting rid of their job title that they're currently in and put them in the street department manager. The job title they're in now is a CSEA position, so they're eligible for overtime. So that person is making about $95,000 a year, which is why we wanted to raise this up to about $80,000, just so it's not as big of a drop, so we can actually get the candidate to take it. So that's the reason for the change. Right now, the person is unwilling to take it for the salary that's in the 2019 budget, and they also don't have a job come January 1st. So if they're gonna lose their job, we've got nowhere to put them, and then we have to post this position and find a candidate. So that's why, you know, it's become a real problem, and we're asking you to make this change now.
Ms. Barraza?
What position is that in the budget currently?
The one there and now,
The one that is abolished as of January 1st?
what's that called?
Street supervisor was currently CSEA in the 18 budget, which is an overtime supervisor position, so he is entitled to overtime.
I think currently that pays 77,000.
Currently is 77,000
For
for
2019, will be 79,000. So really, it's a wash. It's really only
He's
1,000.
actually getting his overtime, less of a position as a manager.
Any additional questions? Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Is there a second? I'll second it. All those in favor? Aye. Anything further for Finance Committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Call to order Public Service and Utility. Oh, Mr. LaFawn, we have 4 items on the agenda.
Good evening.
I guess you want that or no? You
You
got
can hear me.
Yeah, I think you got a good voice.
As we do every year at this time, we do put out our bids. The information you have for the legislative request is for the 2019 chemical budget for the wastewater treatment plant and the water plant. The first one on the agenda is the hydrophilic acid, also known as fluoride. And the bid this year, there's been no change in cost over 2018. It was the same vendor. You want to just go right down and all four?
No.
You might have a question.
Are there questions?
Hydrophilic acid?
Any questions? Second. John?
I'm not on your committee.
Lisa.
Oh, my apologies, a second. I was looking up here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to the second one.
The second legislative request for me have is for the purchase of chlorine gas. That's used at the water filtration plant for disinfection for the drinking water. 2000, there is a considerable increase in price on that. 2018 was $110 per cylinder. This year it would go to Han for 200 and, yeah, it's about $210 per cylinder, $210 per cylinder on chlorine gas.
Okay. And this
That
is,
is a low bid.
that is the low
That
bid.
is,
Okay.
yes, that is the low bid.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, what changed that? What drove that?
There's only one company that produces chlorine gas, it's JCI. They actually bid on it too. They were higher than Han. Actually, Han actually purchases from JCI. So,
I'll move it.
Second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 3.
the third legislative request form is for the purchase of sodium hypochlorite, which is used at the wastewater treatment plant for disinfection. The low bid was to Surpass Chemicals in the amount of $71,600. It's slightly higher. The unit price for this year was 0.716 cents. Last year it was 0.701. So just a few tenths of a cent it went up, and no big impact on the budget.
Any questions?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and item number 4.
Fourth legislative request form is for the purchase of liquid sodium bisulfate. Liquid sodium bisulfate is used at the wastewater treatment plant to actually remove the chlorine from the water that we just put in from the sodium hypochlorite before it goes to the river. So we put it in to disinfect. We have to remove it before it goes in the river for DEC operating permit. 2018, we were paying 1.22 cents per gallon. This year it's slightly higher at 1.35 cents per gallon, but the low bidder was Holland Corporation, Holland Company. So, request to.
Any questions?
Move it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anything else to come before public service and utilities?
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Bill.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Okay, I'll open city development and planning, and first item on the agenda is Mr. Wallen, DOT.
Good evening.
Hey, go see with us.
Sure. The first item in front of you is a supplemental agreement with the New York State DOT for a project that I brought earlier in the year, the paving of
Gilderman and Broadway. So we awarded it locally. We went through all the steps. We couldn't make the schedules work to get the actual work done. So it kind of then fell into I'm not going to say, but the priority dropped a little bit. But we did work with the DOT. We wanted to get all the paperwork done before the end of the year. So this supplemental agreement is for reimbursement for the construction and for the construction inspection. So we've done these in the past, so you'll see that that's what this is. And we have a pre-construction meeting with Callahan scheduled for this Thursday to nail down a schedule, find out when the work's going to be happening, hopefully right at the beginning of the year. And this is just a necessary step to move the project forward.
What's the timing of it?
Yes.
You want that on the record?
Yeah, we can. Once the snow melts.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, huh?
Yeah.
Goodness.
I'll move it.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Wallen, you're next up with a
Yep.
permit?
This is a revocable permit for 7064 and a half on Eastern Avenue. It is a redevelopment project on the corner of Eastern Avenue. I'm sure you've have seen the work. This is a little bit of a unique revocable permit, as we are referencing the permit in here due to the there's a larger number of items that are going to be placed within the right-of-way. She really wants to address the corner, make it look, special with planter boxes, little cafe tables and things like that. So there's going to be some objects there, so it refers to the map. For the non-removable items, we're working with them right now, such as the stairs, things like that, that if they can't be removed, we usually work with the law department to put together license agreements and things like that. So that's with the deed, because we're not going to, have them construct stairs and then say, no, now we have to revoke the stairs. If it's going to be revoked, we want it to be revocable. So these are for signs, awnings, planter boxes, things that are going to be existing on the sidewalk within the right-of-way.
Very good.
Questions? Ms. Porterfield?
So those items, they will not in any way obstruct someone, being able to use the sidewalk? like
No.
a normal
No,
path?
they have to require, it's 4 feet for a minimum distance, 5 feet if it's larger. So they should, they have enough on the width, they have a double wide sidewalk on both sides in that area, so they'll be able to maintain the egress.
Anything else?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Mr. Wallen.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is the consolidated.
Good evening, everyone. Before you, you will see a recommendation to open the public comment period. And this is for amendments to our action plan and also for the comment period for the NRSA and the Mont Pleasant renewal area plans. These require amendment to the consolidated plan, and they are focus areas to look at community redevelopment in the Hamilton Hill, Vale, and Mont Pleasant neighborhoods. So you will see that outlined, as well as the additional funds that have been added to our action plan, and we have proposed the allocations for those funds. So we'd like to open the 30-day public comment period and also call for a public hearing next Monday, December 17th, to review these items.
Okay. So we'll have a public hearing next month.
And again, several of us attended the session at the Warren Branch Library.
Right.
Can you just comment about that a little bit, the input that you had there and the great
turnout? We had a great turnout for the NRSA meeting, and there's a lot of, I also attached, you'll see the summary of the draft, and it's really complementing a lot of things that are going on in the neighborhood already and trying to use that to leverage other funding for implementation of complete streets, like we're looking at with the linkage study. We got a lot of good feedback from the community, and we're looking to integrate these different parts. So it's been pretty positive so far, and we're interested to really track the performance of some of these efforts over the next couple years. And as we write our new consolidated plan next year, which is a 5-year plan, we're basically going to be looking at how we can better integrate and focus our efforts so that we see visible impacts in the neighborhoods that we're focusing on.
Thank you. Thank you. We look forward to that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need to vote?
So
No, it's just a public hearing for next week. That's it.
we're just,
Don't we have to
Call
call
for a public hearing.
The department called for it, so
It's not a
just be on our
right.
For information. So, transfer properties to Sarah, so that's to go in.
Well, we didn't do a CIP.
You have to transfer the properties first.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Is this all the properties from the foreclosure, or just a couple?
These are the properties from August and September.
No reason to ask the executive session.
Okay. All right.
Good evening.
There you go, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You're on the list. Yeah, where's the list?
What you have before you is a request for a resolution to transfer the properties of, they were provided in an email. If you don't have them, I have copies of the 2 deeds. from the city taking it. So we took properties in August and September of this year. So I'm looking to, seeking a resolution to transfer the properties to Sura for the time being until essentially we are ready to sell the properties, and then we'll, as we've done previously, transfer the properties from Sura back to the city to the prospective home buyer.
So the copies aren't in the, we don't have the copies. So,
I do have, yeah, I did have a copy of, in the legislation that I have here, or excuse me, the requested resolution, the 2 deeds.
there's only 2 properties that we need to transfer?
No, it's from when we foreclosed on the property, a host of properties back in August and September, so there are a number of properties.
We're gonna recess. Can we make copies while we're doing the rest of the stuff and just?
We can do that. When we foreclose on properties, we file them all as one deed. It's not one, it's not like when you buy a house, you have one house, one deed. You put them all on one to save some money for filing fees. So it's a large number of properties, but only 2 deeds.
Okay.
You can go print off a couple copies of it, or something, and you can bring it back for it.
Is that all right? All right. Thank you.
Make a motion to recess.
We're gonna recess.
All right, entertain a motion to recess.
I already made the motion.
All in favor? We're going to recess the city development and planning.
Council order claims, 3 property damage claims, all executive session is,
Yes, if you want to go through them by title. you can do that.
yeah, property damage leach, property damage daring, property damage Allstate, and Workman. Motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Ms. second by Ms. Porterfield, all those in favor?
Aye.
Good. Thank you. Property,
We're making copies now, so.